Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is October 16th. Things are moving. We're getting into the last quarter and end of the year, and this is going to be not a long call, but there's a lot of information, a lot of things that kind of overlap, things that are going on in Iraq, things that are going on in the Middle East, things that are going on in this country. We're on the verge of what, in my opinion, is perhaps the most important presidential election for some time. I will bring my perspective to it. I will say this. I have degrees in political science and economics, and everything I've been taught to fear with regard to what could happen seems as though it's about to happen. And so we're going to get into some of that today. But let's get started and talk about the primary reason for our call, and that is the situation in Iraq and the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. There is a lot going on in Iraq. Most of it, perhaps virtually all of it, is very good. But for those of us that have been on this ride for any length of time, we know the MO in Iraq is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So with that perspective, let's take a look at what's going on. I want to start with CBI operations. What's going on in country with the CBI? Well, they're establishing the digital banking system, and that is a global system. It means that they're going to be able to transact globally. It's no longer going to be a closed in-country system where monies and things moved out of the country through hard dollars, but now they've digitized. That's very important. They've also, of course, implemented their electronic payment system, which once again means that these transactions in country are going to be done electronically, not through the exchange of hard dollars. And they've finally begun the process to actually end the auctions. And of course, the importance of all of these things, but particularly the end of the auction, means it's going to be the end of the Iranian theft of Iraqi wealth, which has been going on for decades. So that's important. Iraq also is in the process of completing its files for entry into the World Trade Organization. So formal ascension for Iraq into the World Trade Organization has begun. That's a critical step as well. We also have the success of the monetary reform. We've summarized and gone through all of that on a weekly basis, but what success of the monetary reform does is it brings us to the implementation of all of the economic reforms. Now, these include the decentralization of governance, with the exception, in my opinion, of the HCL, the privatization of their economic system, and the introduction of foreign investors into the country, which can only be accomplished through the privatization. So these are all very important steps toward complete monetary and economic reform. And in my opinion, there is no way that they can accomplish all of this with the currency remaining in a program rate, because the only way they could possibly accomplish this is to continue the use of the dollar. And that's impossible for 2 reasons. Number one, despite the fact that they hold probably more USD in there as a reserve currency than they've ever held before, it doesn't come close to meeting the obligations with regard to the 3-year budget and the international contracts that they've signed to rebuild their infrastructure. In addition, since they've outlawed the use of the dollar internally for the purchase of goods and services for their citizens, the use of the dollar is impossible. So their only solution is to have a new exchange rate and to implement their currency not only domestically but globally as well. Then we have the Parliament and what they're up to. And there's a lot going on. One would be, of course, the budget law and the expenditure tables for the last year of the budget. Second thing would be the investment law, which are the improved terms for international investment. Of course, third would be passage of the HCL, which is toothless without a new exchange rate. And last would be the border and customs law having to do with imports and tariffs. So all of these things are happening at the same time, and all of them make absolutely no sense and are mathematically impossible to implement if the Iraqi dinar remains in a program rate. Then we have Soudani Alak, the governor of Iraq, and the CBI operations. They are implementing trade bank measures to ensure rate stability. The Rafidin Bank audits continue in order to eliminate all corrupt practices. They're in the process of establishing new regulations for their new stock market, and they're established a national citizen website to educate them on all of the new reforms. Again, irrelevant if the Iraqi dinar remains at a program rate. What's happening with regard to the CBI operations is the implementation of Dr. Shabibi's protocol of 20 years ago. So everything I've discussed up to this point is just a prelude to the release of the new exchange rate and the new category small notes. Now, there is one glitch, as I said earlier, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And one glitch was the payment of the salaries that were scheduled for October. They were delayed due to a quote-unquote undisclosed glitch. But payment of the next tranche of salaries supposedly has a projected reduction in the amount of IQD in the payments. If that is true, it means one of 2 things. It means everyone got a cut in pay, which makes absolutely no sense, or it means that there will be, and it's already been determined, an increase in the value of the IQD. So when you put all of this together, whether you're talking about Soudani and his meetings, whether you're talking about Soudani and the governor of the central bank, Alak, and all of the operations of the central bank, whether you're talking about what's being passed in Parliament with regard to all of the various laws, all of this points to one thing and one thing only. The nation-state of Iraq will reinstitute their currency, and they will have a Basel IV compliant rate, because that's the only way that they can fund their budget, fund all of their international contracts, and have the currency swaps with all the other central banks make any sense at all. In my opinion, though, one thing possibly holding up the reinstitution would be the presidential election. I was remiss, I should have mentioned this before. For weeks I've been saying that the backstop for me was January. I wasn't saying that it had to happen in January, that it couldn't happen before that. But what I meant by that was I don't see how they can go beyond January based on the math without being a failed nation state. So, yes, I do believe that it's quite possible this will get deferred until January, but I cannot see it going beyond January based on the calculations of the tables, their expenditures, and, of course, all of the things that they're doing right now. Why would they be doing any of this if their intention was not to reinstitute their currency? So that's where we are with regard to that. But I've got to discuss something else here. I just mentioned the fact that this could be held up till after our election. Well, one of the reasons that could be possible is because, as I said, this is a very, very important election. The United States is really at an inflection point because we have 2 very different candidates in this election. And by different, I don't mean different genders, different parties. I'm talking about radically different philosophies. And let me again qualify this. I do hold degrees in political science and economics, so I'm not a novice at this. I do understand what's going on. On one side, we have the Republican nominee that is a free market economist. And on the other side, on the Democratic side, we have a market socialist and all of the things that come with that. But what do I mean by a market socialist? Another way I could say it is that the Republican nominee is a constitutionalist and the Democratic nominee is an anti-constitutionalist. Well, why do I say that? Well, let's take a look at the stated policies. The Democratic nominee regurgitates the refrain, saving our democracy, saving our democracy. Well, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional representative republic. So what do they mean by saving our democracy? In my opinion, what she means is saving the social democracy that they're trying to create. Well, how can they do that? Well, one way they can do it is through election interference. And it's pretty obvious that they're throwing everything they can at the Republican Party nominee. Another way they can do it is to stack the Supreme Court, which they say they want to do. The candidate also says she wants to end the Senate filibuster, which is protection for the minority. Remember, the House of Representatives represents the population. The Senate represents the states. And the states, irrespective of their size, are equal, which is why each state has 2 senators. And in order for a law to pass in the Senate, they need 60 votes. So the Senate filibuster, if 40 or more senators, for whatever reason, want to make amendments to the law or do not want the law to pass, they have the ability to filibuster. Well, they want to end the Senate filibuster. The Democratic nominee for president wants the illegals that she has allowed to enter this country, grant them amnesty, and put them on the census. This will allow them to stack the House. And when they've accomplished all of that, then they can go after the real enemy, which is the Bill of Rights. They want to amend or repeal the First Amendment, your right to free speech, the Second Amendment, your right to keep and bear arms, the Fourth Amendment, your right to privacy, the Fifth Amendment, your right to due process, and the 10th Amendment, states' rights. When they accomplish all of that, then they can control us in one other way. And that is by simply ignoring Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, which allows the people to create their own currency. And they can not only continue with the Federal Reserve, a private corporation that creates our currency out of thin air and then charges us interest to use it, but they can also implement their central bank digital currency where they can monitor our expenditures, which is an absolute violation of your Fourth Amendment right to privacy. And your Fourth Amendment right to privacy is precisely what our trust protects. But unfortunately, there's more to the story. We have to go back to the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. Up to that point, we operated, and I'm simplifying the history here, but up to that point, we operated with the United States dollar. We do not operate with U.S. dollars in this country. We operate with Federal Reserve notes. They're debts to the Federal Reserve. And this is the real reason they do not want to see the re-election of Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump wants to end the Federal Reserve, return to sound money, the people's money, again, pursuant to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. They can't allow that because the Federal Reserve is the left's laundering arm finances all of their nonsense. Now, the progressive movement, which began in the early 20th century, unfortunately did not accomplish what they wanted. They actually went into hiding for most of the 20th century. But they were reborn with the election of Barack Obama, who said his objective was to fundamentally transform America. And he operated on something called critical theory, which he upgraded to call critical race theory. I would suggest you Google these things when this call is over. Critical theory and critical race theory. And this leads to the implementation of cultural Marxism and progressivism, which are almost indistinguishable. The trans movement, as an example, would be something within or fall under the rubric of cultural Marxism. Because, remember, the enemies of the Marxists are faith, God, particularly Christianity, the nuclear family, and the bourgeoisie. What's the bourgeoisie? The small business. Centralized government prefers large companies and large businesses that they can control. The small entrepreneur, the small business owner, he just wants to be left alone. He's a free thinker. He wants to live his life the way he wants to live it. He does not want to be controlled by anyone. And if he has to work twice as hard to make less money, that's okay with him because he's calling the shots. Well, that can't be permitted. So in the early 20th century, along with the creation of the Federal Reserve, we had the birth of the progressive movement. Progressive movement had a lot of individuals. One was the founder of the ACLU, Baldwin, who was a Marxist. We have Saul Alinsky. He was a radical anarchist and the source or the of Hillary Clinton's college thesis. That was her hero, Saul Alinsky. We had Margaret Sanger, of course, a radical racist. We had Edmund Bernays, an Australian propagandist who used psychological warfare against the people. An example of psychological warfare would be the recent pandemic, or referred to as the plandemic. He was an Austrian and the nephew of Sigmund Freud, so we know where he got his bona fides. But the progressive movement, which began in the early 20th century, used the term progressive because, in their words, they wanted to, quote-unquote, progress beyond the colloquial constraints of the Constitution. In other words, that pesky Bill of Rights obstructed their tyrannical agenda. Or as St. Barack Obama put it, the Bill of Rights is a series of negative rights because they constrain the federal governance. But that's precisely the point. But the Supreme Court is there to protect the Bill of Rights. Why? Because they knew that on a generational basis from time to time, tyrants would come along who wanted to centralize government and control us centrally. And the Bill of Rights is there to protect us and protect natural law, which are the inalienable rights of all human beings. And then Donald Trump came along. And fortunately, he was able to make sure that in addition to Barack Obama's 8 years of fundamental transformation, we didn't have 8 more years of Hillary Clinton. And she told us all what she thought of us, that we were a basket of deplorables, that we were irredeemable. In other words, we needed her to make everything right in the world. But fortunately, courtesy of Donald Trump's appointments, the majority of the Supreme Court are now constitutionalists. They're not anti-constitutional progressives. So that's where we find ourselves in this country. But now we are in a situation where we are on the verge of the reinstitution of a currency that's going to make a great many of us wealthy individuals. We're also on the verge of an election where if the wrong side wins, they're going to do everything they can to take that from us. Fortunately, there are mechanisms in place which it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, for them to remove that are going to protect us. I'd like to go into a little bit more detail about where we are in this country right now, because the nominee for the Democratic Party is an acolyte of Barack Obama, personally chosen by Barack Obama. Fortunately, if you've listened to his recent comments, they're not only angry, they're even at times imply he's scared. That's a good thing. That means he's very worried that his side's going to lose, and that means that a lot of these people are going to be in trouble, and that's a good thing. One of the things that has been implemented is something called the Cloward and Piven strategy. Cloward and Piven strategy was a strategy where you would open your borders, create absolute chaos that would require not necessarily martial law, but would require a tyrannical federal government that would have to implement all kinds of draconian measures to control the people. So we have Joe Biden into office, and a guy who spent most of his career being a centrist, center left at least, moving to the hard left. And he and his vice president open the border and allow anywhere from 12 to 20 million illegals enter the country. It ushered in hyperinflation. It ushered in rampant crime and chaos. That's the Cloward and Piven strategy, because the solution to chaos is control. This has happened before. There was a book called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire written by Gibbons. And he explains in detail in the book what really caused the fall of the Roman Empire. Remember, the Roman Empire lasted for far longer than the existence of the United States, but it fell when a couple of things happened. The first was open borders, which created chaos and it let the enemy within the gates. Second, it was massive taxation, rooted in the idea that they needed complete control. But of course, what ended up happening was complete chaos. And the third thing was moral decay. Moral decay led to moral weakness, which led to national weakness. And of course, it was the fall of the Roman Empire. Well, all of these things can be seen happening in our own country right now. So we're in a situation where we're not just trying to save the republic, but in the process, we're trying to protect our families as well. And one of the ways you can do that, one of the best ways you can do that, is to establish a family asset protection trust package, utilizing your Fourth Amendment right to privacy, but a lot of other things as well. By establishing our trust. Now, when I discuss this, I'm not just discussing this in terms of individuals that have dinar and other currencies. I'm discussing this as an American citizen who wants to be left alone, who wants to live his life in peace, who wants to build his wealth and be able to pass that wealth on to his children and his grandchildren. And the people running the country right now are doing everything in their power to make sure that that doesn't happen. I'll just give you one example of that before I move on. The fact that they want to tax unrealized capital gain is an absolute destruction of wealth. You can't accumulate wealth, physical assets, if you have to pay annual taxes on those assets. You're going to need to have to liquidate the asset. And after you've liquidated the asset, half of the liquid cash, you didn't even want to sell the asset. You may have even sold it at a loss. But now half of the cash you got from that sale, you need to pay for the gain on the property that you made the year before, even though you made a loss selling it this year. That's how cockeyed this idea is. That's how corrupt the idea is. Now, the candidate for the Democratic Party is too freaking stupid to understand what she's doing. She's just a parrot. Okay, she's sitting on Barack's lap saying what she's told to say. She doesn't understand any of this. The scary part is she probably doesn't care. I know I'm being a little rough here in what I'm discussing, but this stuff needs to be said. So let's talk about this trust, because this doesn't require you take a lot of risk. This doesn't require that you even get close to violating any local, state, or federal law. This is you as an American citizen simply exercising your Fourth Amendment right to protect your privacy and your wealth. Well, how does this trust do this? Well, the trust will protect your privacy and your anonymity because under the law, anything in these trusts is sealed, meaning the general public has no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. These trusts will allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because the IRS, and particularly its audits, they tend to go after the low-hanging fruit. They don't want to go after someone with a very sophisticated trust package, which probably means they have a sophisticated legal representation. They go after Joe Lunchbox. This trust also allows for pre-RV gifting. Within this trust package is a gift subtrust. It's the only one in existence in this country, and I know that because I'm the one that wrote it. What this gift trust does, it not only allows you to gift pre-RV currencies to family and friends in order to avoid the federal gift tax, it also allows you to have control of the post-RV proceeds. Now, in certain situations, you're going to want to control the money. If you want to gift currencies to people and you're fine with them having that lump sum and doing whatever they want, you can do that. But a lot of people have smaller children. They have individuals they're concerned for any number of reasons are unable or unwilling to manage a substantial amount of money. You can manage it for them in this gift subtrust. This trust also allows you to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. By avoiding probate, no one will know the size of your estate. No one will know who your heirs are and how much they each stand to inherit. And because there's no probate, no one can challenge whatever you've given to other individuals in probate court. This trust also allows you to avoid the federal estate tax. The federal estate tax can be as much as 65% of your estate in excess of $12 million. But if your assets are in this trust, even if your estate's worth $100 million, the federal estate tax is zero, meaning you will pass on to your heirs 100 cents on a dollar. This trust also provides other important asset protection benefits. Pre-RV, this trust allows you to avoid something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Well, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property when you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust. So, as an example, let's say you bought 10 million dinar for $10,000. You transferred those pre-RV currencies to our trust, and let's say conservatively they revalued for $1. You now have $10 million in trust. Can you be sued for $10 million? No. Why? Because the currencies were only worth $10,000 when you transferred them out of title. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a strategy called segregation of assets, meaning that, as an example, you purchase 10 million dinar for $10,000. You establish our trust, and you assign those currencies to our trust. The currencies then subsequently revalue for $10 million. Now that you have $10 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger home, say a vacation home, a couple of cars, a boat, an RV, whatever. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate sub-trust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does that protect you from future bad acts? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your sub-trusts, of which you're merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car along with the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the victims, the plaintiffs, will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the car insurance company. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance company will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question, so the plaintiffs would therefore have no standing to pursue them. Now, these are the benefits that are only available to you through the establishment of this package. They're not available to you if you set up a sub-S corporation. They're not available to you if you set up an LLC. They're not available to you if you set up a limited family partnership. They're not available to you if you set up a single trust. They are only available to you if you establish a package of trust and segregate all of your assets within the various sub-trusts. Now, this package is a package initially of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like checking and banking accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift sub-trust, which can be converted to a standard sub-trust, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. This was a simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to market the trust package to Denarians, we simplified the package, and by mass marketing it, we can reduce the cost to $3,000. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you additional $500. If that's not possible, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which would basically offset our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the Iraqi dinar revalues globally, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with this approach, anyone that has currencies would be able to establish their trust to protect those currencies and their other wealth prior to the revaluation, and they should be able to afford to do so. Now, if you want to get our initial trust package, it is a no-obligation package. Again, it has a lot of information about us, about the trusts, about how they work. You'll even receive an invoice for whatever payment you would particularly choose in order to pay for the trust. But again, you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package, contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. I'm going to go to the Q&A here now, and then when I do, I'm going to give you the ways you can contact us to get that initial package. Okay, while I'm waiting for any potential questions, if you would like to get our initial package, you can do so by contacting us either by email or by phone. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC @gmail.com. That's trusts with an S, unlimited, LLC gmail.com, or you can contact us through our phone service. That's 307-274-4122. That's 307-274-4122. We will do our best to get the package out to you as soon as possible. I do want to mention, though, that we are extremely busy right now. A lot of people are contacting us. We're happy to assist you as quickly as we can. Unfortunately, a lot of people are contacting us now. We sent them trust package a month ago, 6 months ago, 2 years ago, and now they're all contacting us now. So it's been a little difficult on our end, but again, we will do our best to get the initial package out to you as quickly as we can. We do have one caller here in the Q&A. That's 480. That's 480. Go ahead.
Hi. I want to first thank you for the work you've done and the information you provide. It's been outstanding.
Sure.
Sure. The subtrust. Yeah, thank you. The subtrust, do they all need their own EIN, or are they covered by the master agreement?
The only trusts that need the EIN number are the master trust, which manages all the other subtrusts, and the gift subtrust. And the only reason you need an EIN for the gift subtrust is because that's the one trust where you're the settlor and the trustee. Remember, with this trust, you will name a third-party trustee to work with you, with the exception of the gift subtrust. So it's the master trust and the gift subtrust that need an EIN, and that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 509. That's 509. Go ahead.
Hi there, Jim. This is Art in the left coast.
Art. Yes, sir.
How you doing? May not be right, but it's correct.
Yeah. Well said.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Hey, I think I'm not sure if I've asked this question to you before. It's been a couple while since I've had the opportunity to talk to you. And by the way, prayers and thoughts for you and your family and relatives and friends that are in the wake of the hurricanes. But,
it's been ugly.
Yeah. Glad we don't have a government that can help. But
that's misinformation now. They were there doing everything, weren't they? Exactly.
Then
I talk to people there, and they just say they're just liars. They're just liars. They're making it so difficult. It's really unfortunate, but it's another indication why we need to change a batter in D.C.
Yeah, exactly. We need that person up on deck to be up on the plate.
Yeah, right.
So, the gift subtrust. If one of the individuals, for example, we had listed on the gift subtrust, sister had passed away, and she was named as in the gift subtrust. Does the gift subtrust the responsibilities of that end at that time upon her passing?
You've established a gift subtrust. Let's say hypothetically you have 5 recipients. All right. So what you're going to be doing is, post RV, you will create a bank account for each of those 5, and you will transfer whatever USD represents whatever you gifted them in currencies. If one of those individuals passed away pre-RV, then you have the option not to make the gift. If you have made the gift, meaning you have physically transferred the USD to their account within the gift subtrust, and they subsequently have either been rendered incompetent or have passed away, then those assets should flow to their heirs.
Okay. But if it has not been accomplished prior to the RV,
that's right.
Then it basically goes away.
Anytime you make a gift, whether it's through a gift letter or a gift in our gift subtrust, if something happens, whatever it is, and you have decided not to make that gift, you can do that. You can just withhold that. Now, if they want to try to make an issue of it, they can try. But one of the things I say to people is if you're going to gift currencies to people, I don't suggest you tell them until you're actually going to physically do it. You have to do the paperwork pre-RV, but you don't have to my family has no idea what I'm doing. If and I have a substantial amount of currency. If things go the way I think, a lot of people are going to get a check. They have no earthly idea what I'm doing.
Talk about a windfall.
As a matter of fact, I don't even know if they know what I do for a living. but that's okay. And they're going to be, Jim George, I mean, you're that guy?
Yeah, know that.
I one time went to Facebook and put my name in there to see what, it was like 600 Jim Georges. There's a hell of a lot more of us out there than I realized. So, it's a pretty common name.
Yeah, I served with Jim George, So,
yeah. Oh, there you go. See, I get totally all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, okay, that's great. Trying to think there's one other thing, but that's okay. I can.
Well, if you can think of it, fire me an email or something.
Yeah. All righty. Thanks, sir. Have a great day. God bless you.
You too. Right, you too. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Now, so the U.S. Treasury, that's still in, they're still in the Iraqi central bank, right?
The U.S. Treasury what?
Are they still in the Central Bank of Iraq?
Yeah, yes. I can't remember what floor they occupy, but they're working with the Central Bank of Iraq, correct.
Now, what about this escalating thing in the Middle East? I mean, you think that's going to drag...
Soudani just had a meeting with a lot of the leaders, and he said to everyone, knock it off. All of the Middle East is about to become completely wealthy because of all of the underlying natural resources in these countries, and we've got Basel IV compliance. So as the Basel IV compliant rates kick in, these countries are going to become extremely wealthy, and the last thing in the world they need is a war in the Middle East. And who they're really pointing the finger at is Iran, that for whatever reason, you have to understand, Iran's mortal enemy, self-proclaimed, is Israel and the Jewish people, but they look down on their other Arab brothers or their other Muslim brothers who are Arab because the Iranians are Caucasian. As a matter of fact, the Caucasus mountain range is in Iran. So they're just bad players, and that's really who Soudani is talking to. He's also been stepping on the toes of the radical Shia pro-Iranian members within the parliament as well. So I think he's the right guy to resolve all of this. He certainly wants at least Iraq to complete the monetary and economic reforms and move on and not get involved in all of this. Of course, his primary concern is Iraq's geographically between Israel and Iran, and he just does not want to get embroiled in all of that.
Yeah, but this is probably not going to. Is Israel, Lebanon, Palestine, Iran thing's not going to get resolved anytime soon?
No, it's not. But what I think he's saying is leave us out of it.
Okay, all right.
And when he says that, he's talking to some of the people in his own country.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Bye-bye now. With regard to that subject, the timing it's horrible. But I honestly believe that part of Iran's calculus is the knowledge of just how rich Iran is going to be. And because of that wealth, they're going to be getting involved in international contracts with European nations, with Western nations, as well as China and Eastern nations. And that's going to make it much more difficult for Iran to try to have hegemony over the Middle East. But that's their problem. The hell with them. Okay, our next caller here is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Diane.
Hi.
I have a question in regards to something you were saying a few callers back in regards to what could actually, I guess, go within the gifting trust and in the trust altogether, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm asking this question. Can a foundation be created out of that? Can it be put into the trust?
No.
If I wanted to do a foundation for something.
To do a foundation is going to be a separate entity. And here's the other issue. When you have other business or charitable entities, you do not want to place them in your personal asset protection trust because it invites the possibility of litigation, which invites the possibility of piercing your privacy. So those are post-RV entities that will be standalones that you will establish. This trust is established to protect your personal privacy and your personal wealth. You may use that wealth to do other things, but the money will move out of the trust into those newly established entities.
Okay. So then, with the trust, if you purchase, you had said if you purchase things like cars, houses, or whatever, then the trust is the one that is paying for the upkeep or paying for the taxes.
Right. Let's say the RV happened. You've established our trust. You negotiated your exchange. You paid your taxes, and now you have $10 million in your trust bank account. And, of course, you're going to want to establish business, investment accounts, et cetera. But you decide to buy a house and a couple of cars. You call us and say, we're buying a house. This is when we're going to settle, and we also want to buy a couple of cars. We would then establish the trust for the house, and when you went to closing, you would take that document with you because the trust would own the house, and you would be the beneficiary of the trust, utilizing the house, which is in one of your sub-trusts. And the same would be the case when you would purchase the car. When you go to purchase the car and they transfer the title, they don't transfer the title to Diane. They transfer the title to Diane's car trust, whatever you've named it.
Okay.
So it's never in your name. It goes from wherever you're purchasing it to the name of the sub-trust. So you call us and say, I'm going to buy a car or I'm going to buy a house, and within hopefully 72 hours we'd have that trust document written and in your possession, so you would take it with you at closing.
Okay. All right. I understand that. So then when it comes to taxes, as far as paying taxes, you said that, we possibly would have to pay taxes. So how do we do that if once we exchange, all the money's in the trust, then how do you pay the taxes? The trust just...
the trust will pay whatever the tax is. Now, there's a discrepancy about whether this is going to be ordinary income or cap gain. I think the way the code reads, it should be cap gain, and there is IRS publication 525 that refers to the gain from the exchange of a currency as a cap gain. However, I suspect this bunch in Washington are going to try to call it ordinary income. Now, if the revaluation were to happen today in mid-October, taxes wouldn't be due until January 15th, which would give us time to compel the IRS to tell us what the tax is, and it would give us time to allow the currency to increase in value so we don't have to exchange it all right away. We've got some time. But if the revaluation were to happen on December 27th, well, the taxes would be due on January 15th. Unfortunately, we would have to pay the ordinary income tax and then file simultaneously for a refund citing certain sections of the code, Publication 525, Section 643A and B, and try to get it reduced. So the timing is going to be important. But, yes, certainly there's going to be a tax on the gain. Section 988E2 of the Internal Revenue Code even says if the profit from the exchange would exceed $200, you need to pay the tax. So what the IRS is telling us is the increase in value is the taxable event, not the point of exchange. So it's all very complicated, and when the dinar hits the Forex, then we're going to shift gears. We won't be writing trusts. We'll be dealing with issues specifically like this tax issue and try to figure out what the tax is and when it's due.
And so if it's considered, I guess, personal tax or tax that I would have to pay myself, then it comes out of the trust, or would it be written by my name?
If the currencies are yours in title, then the personal tax is due. You are due to pay the personal tax. If the currencies have been assigned to the trust, then the money from the exchange is in the trust, and it would be the trust that would pay the tax.
Okay. So the trust would be paying the tax. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right then. Thank you so much.
Sure. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 208. That's 208. Go ahead.
Yes, Jim, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
This is Greg in Idaho. How are you, my friend?
Okay. How are you?
Very good. Very good. I appreciate so much what you do, and our prayers are with you and your families for the loss within your family and the situation environmentally that you're dealing with. I was going back through your initial instructions, Jim. Has anything changed in terms of when you set up this bank account with the bank? Aren't we still holding off on that until we have money to exchange?
I would not to even discuss the fact that you have currencies with any bank right now. Once the currencies revalue, then you can make a determination about what bank or banks you want to establish accounts at. Now, this would be the bank account for the master trust. If you review the exchange protocol document that accompanied your trust, says that you'll go to the bank, you'll negotiate your exchange, the USD will go into the master trust bank account that will be established that day at that bank. You want to make sure they don't try to put a 21-day hold on your money so they can play with the float. You want to make sure you have your liquidity. After you've done that, you will then go back in a week or so with your gift subtrust to establish bank accounts there. You don't need to transfer any money to the gift subtrust at the point of exchange, and you do not want to confuse the bank with the gift subtrust. The fact that you have a trust has already confused the hell out of them. So you got to give it to them one bite at a time. They can't handle it any other way, and there's no need to try to do anything initially other than the exchange of the currency. And all you're doing is, I'm going to exchange my currency, and I want the USD to go into the trust bank account we established today. Nothing else. I don't want to talk to your asset manager. I don't want to discuss any of this other stuff, or your state people, or your investments. Don't want to do any of that. Just put my USD in that account, and I want to know how quickly that money's available to me, because 21 days ain't cutting it. And you get that all out right away before they do anything, because they already are calculated. They know they're making anywhere. They know how much they're making just on the exchange. So if you have a lot of currency, they're going to have a very, very profitable day. And, we call it the Jed Clampett effect. You may not understand it, but it's your money. You got the gold. You make the rules. You can go and say, I'll go to the bank across the street. I'll even take less. It's going to be done my way. You got to be that way with these people, because they're going to jerk you around otherwise.
Oh, I appreciate that, Jim. That comes through very clear, and no changes from what you've initially said with your instructions. So I appreciate that.
Certainly.
My second question, Jim, has to do with, does Trusts Unlimited need to be notified of any changes we make with the appointments of trustees or the protector?
You're going to have to name a protector. And you're probably going to want to name a second trustee. Those are all issues that we will be discussing the minute the dinar hits the Forex, because then we're shifting to all of the post-RV issues. What we did pre-RV was make the exchange process as simple as possible. Here's our trust. We have one trustee. Here's our currency. Just set up a master trust bank account, put the USD in there. We don't want to discuss anything else today. Don't even start with your dog and pony show. Not interested.
Okay, so we did appoint these people months and months ago. You have record of that.
Well, if you change the trustee, the trust had to be rewritten.
Well,
okay.
We're going to keep the trustees, but I think we're going to rename the protector. So, do you need to know of that? Do you need to know about that and rewrite anything?
Okay, here's what you need to do. Send us an email, give us your name, give us the name of your master trust, and say what, if anything, is required to replace either the trustee or the protector. Just send us that, and then we'll send you whatever you need.
Okay. Thank you, my friend.
Right.
Always appreciate your hard work. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller here is area code 810. That's 810. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. How you doing? Stan here.
Yes, sir.
Look, as we set these trusts up and get the EIN number and all that kind of stuff, do we need to be filed at the end of the year any type of paperwork?
Okay, first of all, this trust does not need to be filed in any city, in any county, in any state, or federally, anywhere. And as long as there is not earned income within the trust, there is nothing to file. So if, for example, you set up our trust, you've assigned 10 million dinar to the trust, until that currency revalues, there's no taxable event to report, so you don't report anything to anybody.
Okay. Let's say you're dealing in crypto or something like that. Now, if you put crypto into the trust, let's say you do that before the RV take place, what you just said, does that still apply?
No. If you have crypto, unlike a currency like the dinar that's in a program rate, it's an inactive currency, you have something that you can make and lose money on. So in a given quarter, if you're making or losing money, you've got to report the gain to the IRS with the cryptos. Okay.
That's whether
you
put.
Now we don't. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons we don't recommend you assign anything to the trust other than the currencies, to avoid any of those issues. Because let's say you had cryptos, and let's say you earned profit, and they're in the trust, and you didn't declare anything. Well, then they're going to want to audit your trust, and then they're going to want to know about your currencies and all. You don't want any of that. So if you have cryptos personally and you've made a profit, you've got to declare the profit. And if it's in trust, then the trust has to declare the profit. Now, there is an argument that they could distribute that to the individual, but again, you're still involved in activity with the trust. So if it's assigned to the trust and you've made a profit, you're going to have to declare it in that quarter.
Okay. Now, when you say assign, are you saying that might be my intention to do that? But
if you haven't physically assigned, if you do not have a document that said, I hereby assign any and all cryptocurrencies in my possession or any that I subsequently acquire to the trust, unless you've created that document, you still own them in direct title. And the tax would be due you as an individual.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Certainly. Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay, our next caller is area code 443. That's 443. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Gina from Maryland.
Yes. How are you?
I'm all right.
That's good.
I'm anxiously awaiting and praying that we're going to have some good stuff happen on November 5th.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have a lot of critical things going on between now and the end of the year with the currencies and the investments in this country, the election. So, everyone's kind of on edge a little bit right now.
Well, right, and it's not the be all end all. It's just part of it's a part of the overall plan.
Right.
That's my feeling on it. So, I wanted to follow up. I heard someone ask a question about having the protector. So for Mar Trust, at this point, all we have done is established one trustee because, that was the direction or the guidance that was given to help keep things simple.
Correct.
If that's the way we are at this point, we should just hold in that position until we...
The trust calls for the establishment of fiduciaries. Fiduciaries are the trustees or the protector. Ideally, you want two trustees and a protector. However, since the trust has not been funded, one trustee is all you need, and the protector's job primarily is to assist when there are discrepancies between the trustee and the settlor. Well, since there's nothing in the trust, there's no issue. So we thought it made much more sense to just have one trustee pre-RV, because if you name two trustees and a protector, the bank is going to want all of them at the exchange. And, of course, a lot of people are going to name trustees and protectors in different states. And when this thing pops, the last thing in the world you're going to want to do is to try to orchestrate three people coming in from two different states to jive with an appointment you have at the bank. So since there's nothing in the trust, you don't need any of those other post-RV operations. Name one trustee, keep it simple, go to the bank, negotiate the exchange, get the USD in there. Then you can appoint a second trustee and a protector.
Okay, that's good. I just want to make sure. And then another question is just kind of I don't know. I know we're all very anxious and looking forward to this, or excited, but I almost feel like it would be better if it happens after we do have a change in administration. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's assuming we do have a change, because it's not done yet. On paper, Trump wins, but
right.
The other side is doing everything they can to tip the scale. So it's hard to say. I mean, the man's been shot once, attempted one or two other times.
That we know of.
They've indicted him. Right. They're suing him. They're trying to put him out of business. I mean, so, the only reason I still feel that he's got a real good shot to win is because they wouldn't keep doing these things if their internal polls didn't say the same thing. So the other issue is, especially with his trust, I would argue that the trust even makes more sense if she is elected, because there are embedded rights within the Fourth Amendment that she may hate them, but she can't get around them. Their batting average with the Supreme Court is absolutely abysmal, because the things they keep trying to – I think in the last 100 years there's been something like 30 attempts to amend the Second Amendment, and they get sent packing every single time. But they just – they're the Terminator. They just don't give up. So, the trust is sort of our bulletproof vest that they just can't do the things that they're trying to do. So, we'll just have to wait and see. My concern would be that the tax issue. They may want to hit us with a windfall tax. They may want to hit us with a millionaire surtax. They may want to continue with this, cap gain, unrealized cap gain, all of these things to just whittle away at us. That's what I think they would attempt to do if the Democrats prevail. I just have a feeling they won't, because they brought all the big guns out, and they usually don't do that unless they're worried. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's my thought. Is I think you have one side that doesn't want these numerous middle class, average people to come into this, because then we're much better positioned to be able to protect ourselves and push back against, whereas I think the other candidate is all for people's lives getting better and being prosperous.
Well,
and
let's put it this way. Let's say there's somewhere between 6 and 10 million denarians. And let's say that half of them are Republicans and half of them are Democrats. Well, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you just became an overnight millionaire, you're not going to vote for higher taxes and bigger government.
Right.
So that's their concern, and maybe that's one of the sleepers in this election. Maybe because we're on the cusp of this thing happening, people that have applauded the quote-unquote wealthy paying their fair share all of a sudden go, uh-oh, what the hell? I'm one of these wealthy people now, and I'm willing to pay my fair share, but I'm not paying 70 or 80% in taxes. That I'm not voting for that. So, that's another issue that under the radar that might be a factor in this election.
Right. Okay, well, thanks again, as always, for
Sure.
the info and subject matter expertise you provide. I always get something every time I listen. I get a little more knowledgeable. Thank you so much. Take care.
Well, thank you for your kind words. Bye-bye now. Mm-hmm. Okay, we got a lot of people calling in here today. Who do we have here? Let's see. This is 703-703.
Hi, yes, Jim. This is Lewis. How are you doing today?
Okay, Lewis. How are you?
Oh, fine, thank you. My question is, and with this particular trust, let's just say you sign up, and then over the course of a year, 2 years, now you're placed into a nursing home. How is this protected? How are you protected so that they can't go back if it doesn't, because they can go back 5 years or whatever. How are you protected in this particular trust?
Well, first of all, the trust in and of itself, and this is another post-RV issue, we still recommend that individuals have their own wills, powers of attorney, medical directives, and all of that. So if you find yourself in that situation, they're going to be able to facilitate taking care of you. Are you referring to the 5-year look back? Of course, if something happens to you post-RV, the 5-year look back isn't an issue, really. Post-RV.
Okay, because I was looking at the 5-year look back, where if they could go back and say over 5 years, okay, something happened.
Well, the 5-year look back would, I guess that's something we could take a little bit closer look at, but I don't really see that being a problem. Remember, we've had these trusts for a long time. Denarians are just one group. Well, I was trying to think. Our attorneys, there was a couple of cases. I'm going to have to go back and look at that. Our attorney, Robert Bly, has actually written one of the finest special needs trusts available, and in certain circles, he's really well known for that. So I will go back, and as a matter of fact, let me make a note of that. 5-year look back on medical. Okay. Meds and nursing home.
Yes.
Of course, the other way to look at it is if it's post-RV, why would that be an issue? You could afford to pay for whatever you wanted.
Well, that's true, too, but it's just a question that always lingers in the back.
Don't get wrong what I'm saying, because I've actually had this argument with some of our clients. Why should I have to pay for that? Because you can afford it. Why should the government pay for it if you can afford it? You're doing everything you can to avoid paying a federal estate tax. I get that. I'm with you 100%. Don't pay a penny more than you have to. But now that you've done that and you accumulated all this wealth, pay your own way.
Well, I agree 100% on that. I agree, but I'm just a question that just came up that I asked, and I said, well, let me ask you.
Now, I will tell you of one situation where an individual was in a nursing home. Their stuff was in trust, and because everything was in trust, the estate did not go through probate. It's the probate process where the state determines if anything is due the state due to the state's expenditure for that individual. But because the assets were in trust and because there was no probate, The end of the money remained in the trust. It was never paid. They never reimbursed the state. So I spoke to a state official about it, and they said the state may, and this is just one state, the state made the determination they were not going to sue the heirs or the beneficiaries of the trust to collect the payments made by the state. So I'm not saying you should set the trust up so you can walk on these things. I'm just saying that there's a likelihood that by having the trust and by avoiding probate, the state isn't even aware that assets exist that they could attach to be reimbursed.
Okay, I see. Gotcha.
And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it were me and this situation happened to me or someone in my family, I don't know that I would pick up the phone and say, well, we have some money in the trust. We're happy to reimburse the state. I'll be honest with you. I just wouldn't make that call.
Right.
Sorry. I mean,
well, I'll have to agree with you.
I mean, they've shaken me down my whole life. I'm not, you pay an income tax. Then if you invest the money, you pay an investment tax. Then if you purchase something, you pay a sales tax. Then if you die, you pay an estate tax. And so now, for some reason, because of the way I set it up, I was able to avoid the repayment of a medical bill. I'm just not going to lose any sleep over that. But that's just me.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's just, like I said, it's just a question I always had lingering on back, and I think you answered it.
Thanks very much. You take care.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller. Wow, we got a lot going on here today. Let's see. Our next caller is area code 312. That's area code 312. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. It's Les, Chicago. How you doing, man?
How you doing? Wow. How's it going up there?
All right. How's the? It's a little cool, but it's sunny.
Yeah.
Shootings are down today, so we're okay.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay.
Oh man. How's the professor doing?
You know what? I haven't talked to him in a while. He's I don't know where he is. I tried to call him earlier this week, and we haven't been able to catch up with each other. So I'm assuming he's out there doing something.
Okay, well, he's missed. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, I'll get to him today because I got some things I got to run by him.
Okay, then, great. My question is regarding banking. So, they have banking heads all over the world. They even have a meeting somewhere in Europe. Can't remember that spot, but it's a big banking meeting where
Basel, Switzerland.
Basel, yeah. So, are they involved in this RV, such as vacations and the end of the year? Could the RV be held up and go into January? If it doesn't happen this year, would it be because of their vacations or anything like that?
Well, I don't know that vacations. Well, I will say this about Europe. Europe, they have a 4-day work week. They take their vacation time very seriously. They live a little different lifestyle, and I've spent a couple of summers in Europe, and once you get there and you start kind of slowing down. Of course, I wasn't working. I was still on vacation, but you see the people live a little differently. They're much more hyper in the United States, and everyone's busy and everyone's going somewhere. It's a little different in Europe, but the Bank of International Settlement, I would imagine, along with the IMF, is absolutely salivating at the revaluation of these currencies. So I don't think they're necessarily dragging their feet. When I said that this thing could well go into January, it wasn't because of that. It's just because everything takes so much longer than they anticipate. But, I mean, it could happen tomorrow. If the CBI of Iraq, with a nod, not necessarily required, but a nod from the U.S. Treasury and the Bank of International Settlements, it could happen tomorrow, and believe me, they're going to be all over it.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to be concerned about the banks or the bankers that are in charge here in this country, because if we get 800 numbers, that's if, they would have to be told about this, right?
My concern isn't the banks getting their act together so we can go in and do the exchange. My concern is leaving money in the banks, because to me the Western fiat system is on its last legs, and I'm just concerned that they may try to pull some sort of a stunt. In other words, let's say I go to the bank and I do my exchange. I'm on the phone in the car on my way home, getting that money out of the bank as quickly as I can. That's my concern. Okay. Banks only serve two purposes for me: liquidity and convenience. I don't want them investing my money. I don't want to do any long-term business with them. I don't want to get involved in any of that stuff. I want to manage my own money myself, and I'm only using the banks for my monthly cash flow. That's it for me. So that's my concern.
Well, in order for us to get it out, we got to be in there first to deposit it. So,
which is why I said you don't want to see a 21-day hold on your money.
Right.
Just say that that's not unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Now, they may not go for a 3-day. They might do a 5-day or something. But, they're not doing a 21-day hold on my money. Okay? To me, that's literally sticking a gun in my face and saying, I'm going to float your money for 21 days and I'm going to make more on your money than you'll ever make on it. Well, that ain't going to happen.
Okay. Last thing?
That's why you got to discuss that up front with them.
Up front. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And last thing, will you get a notice when this thing goes active?
I have people that I rely on, but they tell me that, they're not the be-all and end-all. They'll tell me as soon as they learn anything, and because of the nature of their work and their associations, I think they'll know certainly before you or I would ordinarily know. But that's just the best I can do. And, of course, I've also said on the calls that when it hits the 4X, I'm going to call a bunch of banks. I'm going to tell them who we are, how many clients we have, how much money that might be. See if they walk into your bank or with our trust, they'll get reductions in the exchange in the transaction fees and get the best exchange rate. But I'm quite sure that the majority of people are going to run to the bank with their hair on fire and get whatever they can get. So it is what it is.
All right. Cool beans. It's good talking to you. Glad everything's okay for you over there. And you have a great day.
Appreciate it, Les. Take care.
You got it.
Now. Well, Les was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, thanks for taking the time to listen to this call. Of course, we'll have a call next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.